So I learned a while back that everybody sees things differently. Everyone has a different kind of point of view and where they see things on different topics and subjects. Now, I took this idea and I went further into it. I researched it and I thought about it. I gave it a lot of consideration and I just went all out on this topic. I learned that why do arguments happen? Well, arguments happen because two different people have two separate ideas or different point of views on certain things. Now, one person, let's just say guy 1. Guy 1 has a point of view. Guy 2 has a different point of view on the topic. He sees things differently than guy 1. Now, guy 1, he looks at a tree, looks at the leaves, and says, I think those leaves are dark green. He sees those leaves to be dark green. His idea of what dark green is matches what the leaves look like. Now you have to remember, people give their own definitions to whatever they decide to. People decide to give their own meaning to things. Now, guy 2, he looks at the tree and he says, those leaves aren't dark green. Those leaves are light green. Now, you have to imagine who's right, who's wrong. Now, what if guy 1's definition of dark green, that color matches guy 2's definition of light green? I mean, if that's your definition, that's your definition. You give that meaning to yourself. You perceive that in your own way. If you perceive that to be in your own way, then you are not wrong. This is how I see it. Now, I learned that even words, any word you throw out, people have their own definitions to it. Now, if I were to say, that's big, you can't really define what big is. You give your own self that definition. If I were to say, if I look at a tree that's 5 feet tall, I'm like, okay, that's big. Let's just say, that's big. And someone else comes over and says, hey, no, that's small. What are you talking about? That is small. They perceive that to be small. Now you have to think, what do you mean? Why was that small? They're comparing that tree to something much larger in comparison. You have to compare it to something else. So there really is no definition of what big and small is. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that people give their own definitions and their own meanings to whatever they say, their own words. No matter how much you want someone to believe exactly how you believe and what you think, people are still going to give their own definitions to what words they use. And back to the tree thing. So who's right and who's wrong? Guy 1 says that's dark green. Guy 2 says that's light green. You can go in a book or go online and look up what dark and light green is. But those are the book's definitions, or whatever source it's coming from. Those are its definitions. They're not your own. So basically, someone else who published the book or whatever source it's coming from, that is their definition, whatever it is. And you're looking up someone else's definition. It's not your definition. So basically, someone is providing you information, and then you are taking that information and saying that is what you believe, and you're not putting in your definition. You're not giving what you truly believe, what really is, and what really isn't. So, you have to also believe, well, I mean, colors aren't the only thing that people have their own definitions of. I mean, there are a lot more, like sizes and foods and basically anything you can think of. You can go look up and it'll provide someone else's information or someone else's research or someone else's point of view, and then you can take that information and then use it. You're not actually creating your own information and your own point of view on things. What does that mean about you? Are you basically copying everyone else in the world, or are you just not creative? No, it doesn't mean that. It means that there's information provided for you, and then you're just so happening to take that information and using it. I mean, you can go out and create your own information if you want. You can do that all you want. You can do that all day, every day. Do most people do? No, not really. Do most people want to? Some do. Some actually do. But not all people. No, it's not the most common thing ever. So everyone has their own points of view on things, and everyone sees things differently. You know this. If everyone saw everything the same way, there would be no arguments. The world and society as we know it would be argumentless. Argumentless. I might have created a new word right there. I don't know. I have to check up on that. But, so no one would argue. No one would have fight. Everyone would see things exactly the same. Now you have to think, that's really boring. That would be a really boring society where everyone agreed on everything and no one fought or disagreed or contested any ideas that had been provided. Look at today's society. Look at it. Someone provides information. Let's just say Gary provides information about oranges. Says that if you eat an orange a day, you'll keep a doctor away. You'll be really healthy. Let's just say. And then Bob comes over and says, hey, that information sounds credible. It actually sounds real. And it sounds like it would be correct. So without any information, he just accepts what Gary says. He says, okay, I agree. You're correct, Gary. And he just goes about his life. So that happens a lot nowadays. You go on the internet and look something up and you're going to be, oh, okay, I agree with that. That happens all the time. It happens to more people than you actually think. People don't really look into or look at different points of view on different things. So, people just look at something, get one point of view, and say, okay, that's what I believe, I'm going to listen to that, and that's real information that I could use. See, what I want to do in my life is I would like to go from point of view to point of view and see how many points of view I can go to on certain topics. How many ways of thinking, how many different ways or where I can stand from on certain topics. Bits of information from all sides. From areas where I do agree on and areas where I don't agree on. So I then can combine that information. I'm basically pushing against myself from the information that I do receive. So then you have to think, okay, so you get a whole bunch of information and you just put it together and just come up with a conclusion that you wish to choose from. Well, you can do that. You can receive information from any way you want. Everyone has their own way of learning and their own way of receiving their own information that they choose to receive. Everyone is their own teacher. You teach yourself everything you want to learn. And if I were to say that you are the only teacher in your life that exists, how would you feel? Well, what if that were to be true? What if I were to say that everything you've learned in your life, that you've taught yourself? Well, yeah, some people have provided information or showed you how to do things. But what if I said that you are your own teacher? Yeah, obviously you've heard that before, right? But you're probably like, oh, okay, I'm my own teacher. Whatever, I don't care. Well, you are your own teacher. You allow yourself to learn new things. That part of the brain where it helps you learn and receive information, it allowed itself for it to learn something new. You allowed yourself, basically. Someone showed you something, and your brain said, okay, I'll learn this. And it basically opened up your brain to that information and absorbed that content, basically. So, you are your own teacher, and you perceive things in your own way, completely different from anybody else. You can see something from one way, from one area, and the guy next to you, not very far away from you, can see something completely different. You can look at the tree and say, hey, that tree is 20 feet tall. And the guy next to you, he's right next to you, a foot away from you, he looks at the tree and says, actually, I see that tree to be 17 feet. You can get a tape measure or whatever and measure it. But the points of view are different. Everyone sees things differently. Everyone has different eyesight. And everyone has their different ways of thinking. So, the two guys aren't really far away from each other, yet they see things differently. Yeah, you can measure and see who really is right or wrong, but that's not what I'm trying to get here. What I'm trying to get here is that, everyone sees things differently. And then these two guys, they start arguing, and they're like, actually, we don't need to argue. We could just measure it. And so they actually make their own information. And so then they find out. So a lot of arguments basically are misunderstandings and having different points of view on different things. I, before, have had many conversations and many arguments in my life where I saw something different than someone else. And someone else would try to convince me to believe exactly how they think. I then told them, hey, I don't think exactly like you. You see things way differently than I do. It's impossible for us to agree on this. And so told them, hey, we shouldn't argue. We just see things differently. And they didn't think that. They still tried to convince me. And so basically that's basically what I wanted to talk about. So, alright. I will probably make some more of these later. It was nice getting to talk to you and getting you to know me. I will talk to you later. Bye.